Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I'll be wrapping up the fuel injection conversion on our 1956 Ford Thunderbird. To do that, I'm using Holley's second generation Sniper 2 EFI system and all of their supporting universal fuel system stuff like pump, lines, fittings, so on and so forth. I'm also going to be incorporating some of their newer optional features like their power distribution module and a 5-inch touch handheld display, which looks to be a really nice upgrade over the standard 3.5-inch display, but I'll cover all of that later in the video. The main point for this video is to get all of the fuel system modifications done, get the system wired and position what needs to be positioned so we can get this thing running and see how well she runs. If you haven't seen part 1, I highly suggest you check that out. The link is down in the description box below. For all intents and purposes, the Sniper EFI system is a direct bolt-on replacement for a carburetor. It has a self-calibrating ECM, the wiring is relatively basic, and of course I'm going to be covering that in this video, but with this particular car and the design of the original intake manifold, I had to go a more custom route. I had to swap intake manifolds, I had to modify the manifold, I did a bunch of service work in the process, and so on and so forth. Just a bunch of work to get to this point, but I'd like to think I'm past the hurdle and it's looking really, really good so far, and I'm looking forward to sharing the rest of this journey with you guys. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and start dropping the tank and see where we go from there. My original plan for the factory fuel tank was to modify it so I can install one of Holley's in-tank fuel pump module systems, which I've never used in the past, but they look really nice. They're offered in several different ways, including a return style or a returnless style. I got the returnless style, but I didn't realize that they required a minimum tank depth, and this particular tank just barely misses the minimum depth by like 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. So I'm glad I realized that before I cut a giant hole in the fuel tank. But word to the wise, you might want to double check your fuel tank depth before you go and order all this stuff. So I'll have to use this on a future project. But something else to keep in mind that I forgot to mention, the Sniper 2 EFI system, unlike the original Sniper system, does not have a built-in fuel pressure regulator. It's just a passive design. So the inlet outlet on the Sniper 2 body, it doesn't matter. You can put it into either side because there's no fuel pressure regulator. The fuel just runs through no matter which way the inlet and outlet is plumbed. So that being said, I had to order a fuel pressure regulator, an external unit. And because of the fuel tank depth issues and not being able to use the drop-in module, I got one of Holley's external fuel pump kits, which has the fuel pump, lines, clamps, and adapter fittings, pre and post filters. It also includes a external fuel pressure regulator. So pretty much everything that I need, aside from maybe some specialty adapter fittings that I can get from Earl's. Another big issue that prevented me from using the drop-in pump module is the clearance between the fuel tank and the body. With how this tank mounts basically right up against the bottom of the trunk pan, there's no space whatsoever for the little fittings and stuff on the pump module to have any kind of clearance and stuff. So long story short, to be able to use the universal drop-in module with this particular car, I'd have to get a custom fuel tank made and go that route and stuff, which is possible for the future, but right now there's no point in doing it, especially with how good these external universal pump setups are. So yeah, I think I'm good to go at this point, so let me go ahead and do my little modifications to the fuel tank that I still need to do, like adding a vent, because the fuel tank needs to be able to breathe with having the return style fuel system, and yeah, let's just get to it. With the fuel tank back in place, I can start running my Earl's Vapor Guard hose to the front and figure out the routing for the fuel pump and the filters. Now, there were a couple of permanent modifications I had to make back here. First and foremost, of course, was installing the fuel tank vent. The other one was removing this little bracket that you can't see once the tank is in place, but basically the filler neck goes in between this little bracket as you put it back in place. And with the positioning of my fuel tank vent, I couldn't get the filler neck up in there, so I had to torch it and cut it out, and it is what it is. As far as the feed and return lines, I'm using the original threaded holes in the tank. So this tank actually had a drain in it, which is really nice. I wish more manufacturers put a fuel tank drain in there, but the drain fitting is now where my return line is plumbed into, and I'm still using the factory feed fitting or whatever. I just got some 6AN adapter fittings. I think the thread pitch for the feed was 1/2-20, and the one for the drain was 1/4 inch NPT. So pretty simple. You can get those online, get those from Earl's, and makes hooking up all this hose a whole lot easier. And if I wanted to convert over to AN braided lines at some point, this is all very easy to do because all of the core hardware is already there. So anyway, let's soldier on. All right, I'm moving right along. I've got the entire fuel system plumbed up. Now it's time to dive into some wiring, which I'm looking forward to because I get to try out some new stuff. So right here, I've got one of Holley's new optional features, and that's the Sniper 2 EFI power distribution module. It's compact, it looks really nice. On the underside, it's got a little diagram so you can see where to put what wires, and there's some little LED lights built in. They'll light up green if everything is good, and if there's a fault or a short, it'll light up red. I went ahead and opened up the diagram right here. I promise it looks way more daunting than it actually is, but it shows you just what this thing is able to do. The whole point is to simplify wiring and make it look really clean. You can connect your main powers and grounds. It's got switched power capability. It's just all sorts of stuff. It's really nice. So you've got all of the main wiring for the Sniper 2 EFI system right here. There's a few different ways to control it. The standard 3.5-inch handheld, the upgradable 5-inch handheld, which I'll be installing in this car, and there's a Bluetooth module so you can control everything off of your phone. Now, depending on what motor you have, if Holley offers a Hyperspark ignition system for it, like a small block Chevy or a small block Ford, for example, you can also connect all of the essential wires to the distribution module. You can even control an electric fan from it. This is really, really neat. So anyway, I've got to figure out routing of some stuff and go through the sniper harness itself and just kind of get my game plan together. But I think this is going to go together pretty quickly, and hopefully it won't be too long to where we can hear this motor fire up and see how she runs. After I made sure all my connections were good, I pulled the majority of the harness back out and loomed everything, tucked it all back in so it looks super clean, super professional. I'm very happy with how everything came out, and also very happy to be done with the wiring. There's just a couple other things within the interior I still need to do. I've got to figure out placement for the little 5-inch handheld, and I'm going to be mounting this little guy, which I forgot to mention earlier. This is the new optional CAN hub for the Sniper 2 EFI system. Now what this does is that it allows you to connect directly to the Sniper's ECM via that M8 port right there. There's another one right there, and that's what you use to connect either the 3.5-inch or the 5-inch handheld. I've got two little holes drilled in the firewall right here. The one on the right is for the display, the one on the left is for the CAN hub. This allows you to take advantage of additional features of the Sniper 2 system. You've got obviously the direct connection to the ECM right there. There's 3 additional display ports if you are monitoring multiple things. There's also a high-speed USB-C connection, so you can plug this directly into a laptop for additional monitoring or tuning or whatever. It's a really, really nice piece, just like the power distribution module. You can mount this within the engine bay or within the interior. As you can see, I've gone ahead and mounted it underneath the glove box to where it's tucked out of the way, protected, and still easily accessible to take advantage of these additional features. Setting up the 5-inch touchscreen is extremely simple. It's really just plug and play with the CAN cable, but you've got a couple different modular mounting brackets. You clip in the one that works for your situation, and then the bracket attaches to the suction base. So the CAN cable plugs into the back, and you screw it in just like all the other CAN fasteners. The GPS antenna connection just pushes in, so that's pretty simple, and there's a micro SD card slot. Now I'm not going to do a permanent installation into this car at this moment, so I've just got the CAN cable hanging and the GPS antenna just sitting on the dash. The actual antenna itself has a magnet built in, so if you have a metal dash like this, you can just, and it'll just stay right in place. But this at least gives you an idea of what the setup could be. Just not sure what I want to do for permanent stuff, so we're just going to leave it like this for the moment. Here's another quick look at the screen from the passenger side. I really like this design because you can always take it off and stuff it in the dash or put it somewhere inconspicuous depending on where you wanted to run the cable. So if you didn't want to have the screen up and you wanted just the nice aesthetics of the dash, you can have it. But if you wanted all the information within easy glance, you can also have that too. Now let's go ahead and power it on. It automatically comes on with the key. Off to the left are your main functions: tuning, monitor, wizards, logging, and settings. This is a much nicer interface than the 3.5-inch display. The screen feels more like a smartphone. The touch response is far improved, and this offers so much more functionality, being that there's a lot more customizable information. So with this main monitor screen, for example, you've got your speedometer, tachometer, and various digital readouts down below. But if you wanted to switch up the layouts or add different parameters to keep an eye on, you just hold the screen. It allows you to edit it, and yeah, it's just a really nice setup. So now I need to go through the basic setup wizard so we can get this thing fired up. Now let me walk you guys through what the initial setup looks like. It's pretty basic for this car. You go into wizards. This particular setup is already calibrated for Sniper 2, so that's the only option. We hit next, 8 cylinders, next, engine displacement, 312 cubic inches, next. Target idle speed, this can be fine-tuned once the car's up to temperature, but I'll go ahead and set it for 650. Stock cam, no power adder, stock ignition, so just coil negative. Now it's got the initial calibration, so we'll hit next. It's transferring the calibration, getting everything set up. This is the base map. Now you just have to cycle the ignition power to complete the setup. You can hear the fuel pump prime. At this point, you want to verify that you have the correct fuel pressure listed in the instructions, and yeah, make sure you don't have any leaks, and fire it up. Right now, the Sniper is basically trying to figure itself out. Once it hits 160 degrees, it's going to start the self-learning cycle, looking at the oxygen sensor and adjusting the air-fuel mixture accordingly. now let's go ahead and hear how she sounds. So yeah, we're putting around the driveway, checking this thing out. I wish I could have been able to actually take it on the road, but I have lost all brakes. We haven't driven this car in quite a long time just because of all the issues we were having with the original carburetor, and apparently in that time the original wheel cylinders decided they wanted to leave the chat and dump fluid all over the place, so I have absolutely no brake pressure. Fortunately, the parking brake works really good, so it is perfectly fine for the intended mission. But I'm absolutely amazed. This thing is driving so much better than it ever had before. I mean, this is absolutely awesome. Throttle response is really good. I mean, keep in mind, it's only been running in the shop for a while and revving and whatnot. The nice thing about the self-calibrating ECM is that it's going to learn your driving habits. It's going to learn the characteristics of the engine, and the more you drive it, the better it's going to get. Of course, in certain instances, you might want to go and do some manual tuning, but that's just, you know, more advanced stuff if needed. But I've never actually had to do any manual tuning. I've only relied on the self-calibrating stuff with the Gen 1 systems, and I mean, this is just, I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Now, of course, this car still is not perfect. It really needs a set of spark plugs. The carburetor had fouled some out, so it's not running as good as it would otherwise. This is probably the 4th set of spark plugs I've put in this, and hopefully will be the last for quite a while, since it seems to be running so much better and not blowing black soot and all that crap out the back. But yeah, a little bit of TLC, and this car will be right as rain until I can dive more in depth into a thorough restoration, which, to be honest, is not going to come anytime soon. My focus is going to be on the Nissan 240SX. My buddy Andy is almost finished painting it, and I've got some other project content that I'm going to be tackling once the Nissan is done. So this is going to be put aside until, you know, maybe a rainy day project or something when we can get some breaks or whatnot. But anyway, super thankful to have all of this done. Yeah, it's awesome. Anyway, guys, I've got some links down in the description box below, so check those out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to leave a like down below, because it really helps the videos a lot. And if you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so and make sure those notifications are on. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.